Okay, hi guys, welcome to the Dr. Erin Show here at Focus TV Studios in West Hollywood. And if you are somebody who is single, if you're somebody who's dating, if you're somebody who's in a relationship or someone who desires love, you want to stay tuned for this Skype interview with John Ashley. He is a leading midlife relationship guru in Los Angeles, and I just am so excited to have this fun, silly conversation yet deep. So how are you, John?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm super good. You know, I've known you for years through social media and different platforms. And, you know, one of these days we're going to have to actually have you into the studio. Thank you so much for taking your time, though.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I know I feel the same way. I love watching your videos. You do fantastic work, and so I'm just honored to be part of your show. So thanks.
Oh, well, ditto, ditto. So we've been having some great conversations about relationships and dating. It is one of the most talked about things when I'm out and about in Hollywood. Everyone's talking about dating. Quite frankly, people are complaining so much. It's incredible to me.
Yeah.
So today, the intention of this is to really give some people some tips about how to go about not being chronically single.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, when you think about it, dating is a relatively new phenomena. You know, if we went back 100 years, you know, there was no such thing as dating. I mean, literally, two people connected and mated all within like weeks of each other. And by the time we hit the 20s, 30s, and 50s, you know, specifically in the United States, you know, courtships only lasted 8 weeks. You know, I like you, you like me. Because we want to have sex, let's get engaged and get married. So that all happened in a very, very short time. But now that sex isn't associated with marriage, we're now in this realm of dating, and people are confused. There's no, I don't want to use the word guidelines, but it's that, you know, our elders can pass on to us to share their wisdom on how to do it better. So that's one of the challenges we're faced with. And my specific demographic is what's called midlife. So that's after baby making years and before retirement. So if you're 42 or 69 listening to me talk, you know, I'm you know, that's my demographic.
But the new 40s, 20s, so midlife, we've still got a lot of dating in us, right?
Well, but think about it. Most dating advice today is geared to a 20 and 30-year-old population. People that, so I'm dealing with the population of divorced, you know, and with divorce, there's alimony, child support, visitation rights, family court, you know, erectile dysfunction, menopause, you know,
some fun stuff going on there.
Your job.
But wait, just to like bring in a myth, I read this. It was on a big article, I believe it was in Huffington Post, and it said one of the myths is that men and women who have children or a divorce have more baggage than those who have never been married. So midlife dating sounds complicated, but really in reality, dating a 20-year-old, you know, my son's 22, and it's very complex as no matter what age you're at.
Well, the younger demographic, their greatest challenge is they don't know what they want. You know, and when we look back to our parents' generation, the baby boom generation, and before that, you know, your life was kind of planned for you. You went to college, you get married, you start a family. You had these preconceived expectations, and that was a generation that didn't really experience a lot of divorce. Our generation and our children, because I have children in my 20s as well, is they're mostly byproducts of divorce. So their concept of what a relationship looked like is almost kind of like non-existent. They don't even know what they want yet. And partly because they're kids, they've only been adults for a few years. Now you take our demographic, where you said before baggage, there's a lot of confusion. So the conversation around conscious dating is to get real greater clarity on who you are as a person and what you want in a mate, and not taking it cavalierly, because most people fantasize, if he loves me, it'll all work out. Now,
Good luck.
I work with women, but it's like if we love each other, it'll just all magically work out. And love and a relationship are two separate entities.
Completely, you know? I agree with you. And I was just giving a talk on this about like how to overcome the fear of commitment, because this is really what I think that most people that are dating And the fantasy of romantic love is great. It's beautiful. You can create that in relationship. But most people, the moment it becomes boring, the moment it becomes challenging, the moment it becomes anything, they bail or they can't handle it. And it really is about us having a fear of experiencing ourself, of experiencing the darkness within us, those hard times, those places within us that we just don't want to deal with. And so you can stay comfortable your entire life in dating and just trickle from one relationship to a next and have it be some romantic, fantasy thing. That's fine if that is the goal. But if the goal is to have a true relationship, then this is a whole deeper experience of going past those walls.
I totally agree. And what I help my clients do is kind of reverse engineer what your ideal relationship looks like. And I say, really have a sense of what you want. And I mean, be ultra specific, how much time you spend together, where you go on vacations, how you manage money, how you want your sex life, is kind of have a vision of what it looks like and then reverse engineer it. So you can go, okay, this is the steps I need to go to. Now, people go, well, that's kind of confusing. Well, that's where a coach like myself or someone like you comes in. Is our job is to help you kind of reverse engineer that. So when you're dating, you can say yes to more of the right people and no to the wrong people. And I'll give you an example. It's interesting because in today's dating realm, the president of the United States has never been named as much in dating profiles as it's happened today, because our country is somewhat polarized because of politics. But that is a reflection of someone's values. So when you have clarity on your values and what's important to you, you can have a deeper conversation right off the bat to see if we're aligned.
I agree. Now, I think that instead of going like, I need him to be dark, I need him to be this, I need him to do this, I need to go on these vacations, I think it's more about getting clear of what your values are and making sure that those align with somebody.
So I look at it as like a 4 legs to a chair. First leg is attraction. Am I attracted to you? Or are you attracted to me? So we need to establish attraction. And that's the easiest leg to recognize. The problem is everybody puts too much weight on that leg. So the other 4 legs are shared values is 1 leg. Blending lives. Are our lives compatible with one another? I see this a lot with long distance relationships. People fantasize because they're in attraction that this relationship will work out, but they're never going to be able to blend lives. So my feeling is have the sense of, can you blend lives? And the 4th leg is, are you with an emotional grown-up? And this is the hardest one of all, because we talked about baggage before and some other things, but we haven't even gotten into childhood wounds and abandonment.
I went past having to date boys. Yeah, that's one thing I've graduated from. Thank goodness.
But now, when you say boys, and I get that, I want you to know that this is an equal conversation of both sexes. Men typically get labeled as the commitment phobes, and men get labeled as the immature ones, but I can tell you it is, this is a conversation that's 50-50. It's not a man conversation. It's not a woman conversation.
And I found that it's identical, that if somebody needs, as women in a generality, when we are insecure or not mature, we tend to be really, really needy. And it's the same as the man being the runner. It's really one and the same. And, women tend to think that we're almighty because we want to communicate more. But we're not. Over communicating and being needy is not true communication.
Exactly. Real communication. I'm a big proponent of, like, some people say don't dump your problems on a first date, and I totally agree with that. You don't want to dump your problems, but I certainly want to dump my authenticity. I want to dump my transparency, and I use the word dump, I mean really reveal. But I think when we're more authentic in the early stages, you're going to repel those people who can't handle authenticity, and you're going to attract the people that like authenticity.
Yeah, but at the same time, do you need to evaluate or tell somebody everything going on? And for me, coming from a place of a codependent woman.
I don't think it's done in stages, is what I meant.
Yeah. I mean, coming from a place of a codependent woman years ago to a very, I consider myself a very empowered woman in the realm of all areas of my life now. But I used to be the person who would have to want everything within that relationship. I want the best friend. I want my therapist there. I want my, entertainment there. I want my intimacy there. I want everything. And that is too much. It's too much to put on that relationship.
I think, what I look at as scale. So, you might have a great relationship with a man where you are emotionally communicative and you get along so great you don't need girlfriends, but you might need something else that might be a little bit lower on the list and you have somebody else support you. There's a balance and a flow to everything. So you're right. If you want the top of those, you're never going to achieve it. But it's recognizing you each kind of come to the table with your ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I think the number one thing I find with my single girlfriends that are chronically single in that they can't even, they always find something wrong. No matter who it is, no matter what it is, they didn't like how they showed up. They didn't like something about them. They don't like how they, work. They don't like their clothes. They don't like something is always wrong with somebody. And I think, well, that's cool, but you're just going to be alone. Like, you've got to learn how to just enjoy human beings for exactly the way they are. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be all or nothing.
I call that the Seinfeld syndrome. And if anyone remembers the TV show Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld dated more women than anyone on the planet during his run, because every episode he had a new girlfriend, but he always had a reason for breaking up with them. She had man hands. She was a close talker. She was a far talker. She ate her peas with a fork. She walked around naked. He always had a reason. And between Jerry, George, and Elaine, they dated so many people, and Kramer was the best. He just loved life, and he just said to everybody.
I want to be Kramer.
So,
he had fun doing everything.
So I call that the Seinfeld syndrome. And what it means is, I think, this is what I believe is, nobody likes the word settle, but I like the idea of settling down. And what I mean is throw away all those constructs. And while it's certainly I'm sure most people want a partner that can support themselves financially. And most people would like a partner who's emotionally available on all those things. Those are really important things. And it's okay to ask for that. But it's also what my friend Ariel Ford calls wabi-sabi love. And that is, it's really appreciating the imperfections in a person, because wabi-sabi is I think the Japanese art of, like, there's a vase and there's a crack in it and seeing the beauty in the crack. And it's the same in relationship. The best illustration of this is the movie Harry Met Sally. Sally was this neurotic person, right? That especially when she ordered food. Huh?
Both were so neurotic.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the movie, they fell in love with their neuroses. I mean, and that's kind of an exaggeration, but they fell that are unlovable, and that is real love and intimacy. When you can find a partner, you can love them for the things in spite of themselves, if you will.
And I think that, what's so fascinating is I agree with you at the very beginning of the conversation, we talked about how dating is somewhat new. The reality is that the projections are that marriage is actually on the decline, that this is going to become a more and more conscious conversation about just dating. So I always think with clients, like, have fun with it. Have this be like a spiritual discipline for you to find the greatness in each person, to be grateful for whatever they are up to in their life. Find it fascinating, whatever that is. But I truly believe that, and I know for a fact that just because people are married does not mean that they're more fulfilled or happy. In fact, it may be, I think that the goal here really is becoming someone who's good in relationship, whether it be just with the self, whether it be with people you work with, whether it be with friends, and whether it be with people you're dating. The reality is that you've got to practice focusing on people's strengths, focusing on positive affirmations and affirming them. And then I feel like the universe can't give you more until it's almost like you pass that test around just loving people for who they are.
You just said something that, really triggers, I mean, use the word triggers, but inspires me as well, is that I believe, unfortunately, entitlement and expectations has replaced acceptance and gratitude. And I'm not sure anybody ever really did approach relationships with acceptance and gratitude. And yet, if this was where we started from being really grateful, this is another human being I'm able to connect with. Sure, they're 4 inches shorter than you'd like, or their hair is balding, or whatever, whatever. I was going to say a woman's thing, but you don't feel like it's right. But just be grateful that you're connecting with another human being, have compassion, have acceptance, and even if it doesn't work out, you leave the experience feeling better. But if you come in with expectations and entitlement, you're already starting off behind the 8 ball. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of people here do that. A lot. And what I love about your work in particular, because you're such a spiritual person that comes from that place of compassion, appreciation, and gratitude, is you're helping people step into that space. Because when you start from there, when you start from being a giver, and just give, you're going to have a much better experience. But if you expect someone else to respond a certain way, you will always be unhappy because nobody can ever fully meet every expectation.
Yeah, for sure. And we know that through the law of correlation, what we put out comes back for sure. And one of the things we do, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, because coming from, again, kind of a recovery standpoint of relationship, one of the things we work on with clients is for them not put titles around things, because the moment we put a title around it is the moment that we start to think all or nothing, and it can become dangerous in us kind of just amplifying the bad and the good and everything. So what do you think about, because I think obviously commitment is good at a point in time in relationship, but where is that place? Where do you think people should commit versus not commit? The titles can be a dangerous place to go.
Okay, so I'm going to be very outspoken here for the next minute or two as I...
You just cut off.
Basically, what I'm saying, the way I view it, it's like this. Everybody sees the world flat and I see it round. So let me share what I see the roundness, if you will, is that the title of masculine and feminine is fucking it all up. We have too many expectations around men and expectations around women, and we stop being people. We stop, I'm a subscriber to something called personhood, okay? Men aren't expected, so here's an example. Everybody expects men to pay for dates. That's the expectation. But the minute you meet someone with an expectation, you failed. Now, I'm not suggesting men can't be generous and be in that space of giving, but if you're coming from that because he's a man, because of the masculine, you're already setting it up for failure.
Yeah, I mean, that's old school. That's just old school, period.
But Erin, that's what we're dealing with today.
Well, that's transactional versus transcending. That's a difference between a true partnership versus a transactional. It's a completely, it's like conscious versus non-conscious. It's not even a conversation for me anymore.
But that's what we're still dealing with, and your role in life and my role is to create some awareness and consciousness around that. But that's what I think we're most dealing with in the area of titles and labels. Is that particular one is the one that needs to be addressed first. Mm-hmm. Is that we're just people going through this experience, and I don't believe we should have expectations around gender.
That's the whole thing. That's where titles, in my opinion, mess up, because we do have so much programming, just like you said, around those roles. And as soon as we have a title, the title has so many expectations and so much program around that. I almost feel, I do believe in holding a sacred space for two people, for it to bloom into whatever. But I also feel like, how can you commit to something when you don't even know somebody? You're just getting to know them. Why would you put a title around it until it deserves the celebration of what it is?
So I'm going to kind of, and I know you and I are beyond this space, but this is the realm I'm dealing with. For example, courtship. I always say, how can a man court a stranger? Even if you go on 3 dates with someone or 10 dates, they're still very much a stranger, because I think it takes about 100 hours of belly-to-belly time, of telephone time.
I love that. That sounds like a new book.
Well, I'm working on it. So it takes that much time to really know them, like them, and trust them. How can I court somebody I don't know yet? So if that's the expectation, again, we started off behind the 8 ball. So So I call it the art of hanging out. It's something I'm working on. And the idea is if we go back to a way of getting to know someone by just hanging out, it's not dating. Ideally, or it's not dating with romance and passion at the forefront. However, we still need to have some passion and romance in the intermix, but I believe it's simultaneous. Build the friendship while you're building romance. It's not.
I agree. And that's an art. You can help people do that. You are a highly, highly demanded human being because
Well,
I think
it's
that's
a work in progress.
dating. I think there's a place that's great. It's a little bit fantasy delusional. When do we actually hang out and really get to know each other? And that's what I think everybody really wants, you know?
Well, so my parents have been married 65 years, and I've interviewed couples who've been 40, 50, or 60 like my parents, and they all say the same thing. I married my blank. Fill the blank.
My best friend.
Friend. You know, if everybody says the same thing, you have to ask yourself after you've gone out with someone 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, do they feel like my friend? Because if they feel like my friend, you shouldn't be dating them.
I agree. Or respect. If you don't respect who you're with, it's never going to work out.
Exactly. So
that's so great. Okay, so let's do a last little thing. I want to give some tips for people to have a breakthrough today around dating. Let's think of something that what you would say for tips for people that maybe have done that little dating thing. They're having a hard time kind of going into hanging out and just really getting real with people. What would you recommend? How would they do that?
Well, going back to what I said earlier, start with gratitude. Start from a place of gratitude. That is the centerpiece of everything in life, because when you step into a space of gratitude and abundance and appreciation and acceptance, you're going to start attracting better experiences in your life. So that's the first step. And that's very hard to do. So for those watching here, I want you to follow Erin because she's really big on this piece. Follow others to practice gratitude, really, and practice it daily. It's a daily practice.
Minute by minute.
Not literally minute by minute, exactly, or second by second, you know, because by the way, fear, anxiety, frustration can't exist when you're in gratitude. And so the next piece you want to be grateful for is be grateful that you can date. You know, be grateful that we live in a country where, I mean, you know, there's a lot of complaining going on.
Honestly, I have people reach out to me from other places in the world where they are so sad and suicidal because they can't marry the person that they love. In their culture, you have your family decides who you marry. So yes, I agree with Jonathan. If you don't realize how lucky you are to even have the freedom to date, then guess what? The universe is going to give you some hard lessons to begin to get into gratitude.
You are spot on there, sister.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay, good. So, where can people find you? That you are, you know, I've just been following you forever, and I just love the conversation of dating consciously and having people just get clear on what the hell do you want. Most people don't even know what they want when they're dating. So, how can they find you? How can they work with you?
I don't know if you're going to have a link here, but my name is Jonathan Aslay, and that's spelled A-S-L-A-Y. Just Google me. You can find my website there. You can find my YouTube channel. You can find my Facebook page. And for those, I started something called Midlife Love Mastery. Midlife Love.
More times, I think you just cut out.
So I have something called Midlife Love Mastery. And it's an inexpensive membership program where you get so much content, you get monthly calls, there's so many things helping, and I specifically work with women, helping them understand men and accelerate the process of meeting the right guy by avoiding a lot of the wrong men. So I teach you how to meet the right guy in that way. So Midlife Love Mastery, and it's on my website.
Nice. I love that. And you're just a big sweetheart. You know, that's the energy that I get from you. And I just want to send my love to you and your family, and just really appreciative of all of your work, all the conscious conversation, and your commitment for people to really be fulfilled in all relationships in their life.
Well, thank you. And likewise, I love your work, sweetheart. And I want to send you a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug.
For sure. We'll have to have you in the studios here at Focus TV, you guys. So check him out, Jonathan Ashley, and he is a midlife guru on dating and relationships. And you can check him out there, and have you guys have a great day, and may you live your truth.